Hi, everybody. Welcome to Square Off.
Liz, people say it's not whether you win or lose, but how you play the game, and that is utter nonsense.
So I take it you're not really in favor of a growing movement to not keep score or standings at youth sports leagues.
Life is all about competition, Liz. You can't remove it from sport at any level.
There's something to be said, though, for non-competitive sports, Mark, especially for those little kids. Let them play hard and have fun, and as well, have a good time, even if they technically lose. We're going to talk about it later on Square Off.
Will the lives of 4 teenage boys lost to gun violence finally provide the spark which will ignite the change needed to end these senseless deaths?
Since the new year, the names of 3 Toronto 15-year-olds, Jarvis Montague, St. Aubin Rodney, Tyson Bailey, and 9-year-old Keyshawn Williams of Brampton have been added to the ever-growing litany of tragic endings for young men who should have had long and happy lives.
Why are these deaths happening, and what can be done to prevent them? We're joined in Toronto today by Laurie Goldstein, veteran columnist at the Toronto Sun. Next to him, Malcolm Johnston, spokesperson for the Canadian Association for Equality. Malcolm, you and your group are calling for Queen's Park to take action. What do you expect legislators to do?
Well, we expect to stop trying to come up with simplistic answers and to actually look at what the social causes behind these problems are. In Toronto, since its height in 1998, when homicide was at its highest, it has slowly come down over the years, except in regards to teenage boys. You might not be aware, but since 2008, 50 teenage boys have been murdered in Toronto, and the list is growing every year, as you can see. And that's just Toronto itself. That's not the GTA. So while homicide rates and violence is coming down, it has tripled for teenage boys. So definitely there are some problems that have to be addressed, and we have to find out the root problems, what's causing this.
Laurie, it's not the first time politicians have undertaken these kinds of investigations before. In fact, former Chief Justice Roy McMurtry and former MVP and Speaker of the House Dr. Alvin Curling submitted their review of the Roots of Youth Violence report in 2008. Has anything concrete ever come from them?
I don't think so. I've been a journalist in Toronto for 35 years, and I think we've looked at this problem from every way you possibly can. It's certainly true that most of the victims of gun crime are male. So are most of the perpetrators. And the issue has been studied, according to class, according to economics, according to race. I suppose doing it according to gender might have some value, but to me, it's a complex problem. There's no magic solution. From my own point of view, I've come to the conclusion that we need to do 2 things. One is to toughen the sentencing regime, and the other is to improve on education, make it more jobs-oriented, and supporting families. But nothing is going to... there's kind of a silliness when the media goes rushing, and I include myself in this, when we go rushing to politicians and ask, what are you going to do about 4 shootings or 4 woundings? We've tried to do it. How many times have we heard politicians say, enough is enough? We heard it at the Krieger shooting. We heard it at the Danzig Street shooting. There's no simple solution.
Malcolm, this isn't just a Toronto problem. This is a problem certainly throughout North America where young men are being murdered. What are other jurisdictions doing, to your knowledge, and what's been successful in getting the guns off the street, educating people, doing the best with what resources that they have to stem this problem?
We can't really compare ourselves with the United States. It's a whole different ballgame there. Toronto generally has a per capita homicide rate of about 3 per 100,000 people, whereas cities like Detroit are at around 33. So obviously gun violence is a different issue in the United States than it is here. What our group hopes to address is some of the social problems that are affecting boys and young men, because even though it's 50 teenagers that have been murdered since 2008, if you include men in their early 20s, that list triples. And we're trying to find out why men are dropping out of school, or boys are dropping out of school, why men aren't enrolling in university, how come the suicide rate for boys is approximately 4 times higher than that of girls. The problems in the family courts, where fatherlessness is a huge problem in our society. and issues like that, because unless we start addressing the root issues, all we're going to keep doing is just adding names to those lists. And we can't, Laurie's right, we can't just go rushing to the politicians and saying, what's going to happen now, and then 3 months later forget about the whole problem until there's another round of this. We have to start addressing what's causing this type of behavior with young boys and men.
Laurie, what we do know is that the police went to several Toronto housing units on Friday and seized numerous weapons. Nobody seems terrifically surprised by it. I was, and I don't know if I lived in a building where, they were found in the stairwells. I wouldn't be so happy. But how much does Toronto Housing have to get involved in making necessary changes so that this can't continue?
Oh, well, they absolutely have to. And on that issue, let me give you one example. The city wanted to make it easier to evict people with a criminal record in Toronto community housing. That's what that is. And the Ontario cabinet ministers, including the now premier, Kathleen Wynne, was basically, kind of obstructing that. This idea that, we have to, even people who are bad have to have a home. I mean, that is so far removed from reality and from what we need to do. It boggles my mind that you would protect the rights of a small group of criminals at the expense of terrorizing the law-abiding majority. But that's how far away our thinking is from reality. I certainly agree that in the areas of families, we have to address the issue of A, the breakdown of the nuclear family, and B, the absence of fathers from families, particularly, for example, in the black community in Toronto. It's a problem everywhere. It's a tremendous problem in that community, and we know what happens when there isn't a father in a family very often. What happens is social disaster. And so that's not to blame fathers. That's not to blame blacks. It's not to blame women. It's to look at these very complex problems in a complex way and realize there's a whole bunch of things we have to do, both on the social justice side and on the criminal justice side.
Malcolm, do the police, in your opinion, have the resources, the abilities, the expertise to put a dent in these crimes?
Yes, I believe they do. What's been happening, as you can see by just the statistics of violence in general, the police in Toronto are doing a very good job. They are presented with the problem. By the time these incidents happen, it's not the police's fault. They're just responding to the situation. It's not the police's job to be involved in this. They're supposed to solve crimes and try to keep crime down. So we can't.
What about crime prevention, though?
Well, that's always difficult. It's very hard. I mean, the problem now is boys do not. There's a lot of pressure on boys these days. They're not enjoying their experiences at school, at university. They don't find reasons to stay in. There's sort of a social malaise when it comes to certain aspects involving the lives of boys and young men, especially in the black community and the Aboriginal community. In the youth justice, in the young offenders, there's about 15,000 young people on any given day in the system, and about 26% are Aboriginal youth. So we're failing them too.
Gentlemen, I wish we had more time to talk about this, and hopefully we won't have you back because there are more murders of young men. But thanks so much for your opinions, your perspective on this. Laurie Goldstein, Malcolm Johnston, thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much.
When we come back, are you carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders?
If so, you're likely carrying that weight in your hips, your belly, and your thighs as well. We'll find out why people who feel too much can eat too much. Next on Square Up.